Give us this day our daily bread. You said you would supply all our needs according to your riches. I have but to ask, and I shall receive. To go from here and share this love you gave to me, to show someone who's lost and help them find the way to truth and faith, so they can be free like me. Oh Lord, we need your love. Lord, we need your peace. Lord, we need your joy this day.
Thank you for this day, Carla Edwards. So beautiful that we get to just enjoy your voice and your gift every single Sunday at Unity of Dallas. And how about this day? I'm noticing, I don't know if it's me, but I have seen so many more smiles today. Maybe I'm just more aware today. I don't know, but just been so many great smiles in the building. And I want to say thank you. We're so excited to our first-time guests that are here today. And I've also met several people at both services who haven't been here in over 5 years, and some 10. And somebody said they haven't been here in 50 years. I'm not sure about that one. But so thank you for being with us today, for sure. And it is a fabulous day. It's, of course, Labor Day weekend. We get to celebrate the workforce. Celebrate the workforce that actually helped make America strong, its strength and its prosperity. So I hope everybody is getting to celebrate this weekend. Well, I'm so excited. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, Barbara White. She was a spiritual leader for CSL, the Center for Spiritual Living, in Bakersville, California for 15 years. And also a featured writer in the book of New Thought, a practical guide for spiritual living. And then she wrote her own publication called Imagine the Possibilities. And we're going to get to imagine the possibilities today because she's going to teach us to grow and glow today as part of her talk. And, you know, the first time I met Barbara was in April, and ever since then, every time I have seen her at that C Week, she came during SCE Week, she's been consistent. She's been just a bright, bright light. And you will get to, I just wanted you to experience her heart today. And so please give a warm welcome to the stage, Barbara White.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Well, good morning. Is God good? All right, so we did this with the first service. I came out of Reverend Michael Beckwith's church in Agape in Los Angeles, and we had a set answer for that. So when we say, is God good? And the answer back is all the time. So let's try it. Is God good? All the time. And that's beyond circumstances. People say, well, how could God be good with this going on there? Because God is always more. God is always more than whatever is happening in our life or whatever's happening in this world. So it's good to be here. Thank you, James, so much for inviting me, for believing in me. And I'd like to start with a little story about a young man who couldn't get up for church on a Sunday morning. And his mother kept saying, son, it's time to get up. You're running late. Nothing. Son, it's getting later. You know, you need to get up and go to church. Nothing. So finally, she goes in there and she said, son, you must get up. It's time for church. You're running late. He said, but Mom, I don't think those people even like me. And she said, it doesn't matter, son. You're 37 years old and you're the minister. So let's just take some deep breaths now and be willing to go within to that place within us that has all the answers always and in all ways. Take some deep breaths with me. And allow your mind to become still, our minds to become still. Just breathing. And imagine yourself walking into a beautiful forest. The trees are arching and they're welcoming. You feel in a way that you've come home. And you keep walking and you see little flowers. And you hear the sound of a bubbling brook. And you follow that sound until you get to the brook. And you see a space there for you to sit down. And you sit down just breathing in the air and the beauty of nature all around you. And an angel appears to you. And that angel stands tall in all of its glory, whatever that looks like to you. And the angel hands to you a journal, beautifully embellished, and it's engraved with your name. And she hands you a pen. And she asks you to do some writing. And the question that she asks you is, what is the ideal scene for your life? What would it look like? To be more loving, more joyful, more graceful, more creative, more abundant. And you just start writing. Getting a clearer picture of what your ideal scene for your life would be. Then she asks you another question, and that question is, what would it sound like? If you were living your ideal life, what would that sound like? And then she asks you a third question. What would your ideal life feel like? she asks us one final question. Are you willing to live it? Are you willing to live your ideal life? And she gently puts her hand on the top of your head, as if in a blessing. And whispers in your ear, it's time to leave now. But take everything that you saw or felt or heard today about creating your ideal life. Take it with you. And be brave enough to live it to the fullest. And so we gently stand because the angel has disappeared. We have our beautiful book and our pen we hold close to us because it's very dear. It contains our ideal scene for our life within that book. And slowly we walk back out through the forest, once again feeling the breeze of the trees, the peace that we felt. And as we get to the very edge of the forest, we turn around and we simply thank God. Thank God for a new vision of our life, for seeing our life more clearly, for all of our blessings. And with that, we walk completely away from the forest, heading back to our seat right here, feeling the seat that we're sitting on. Taking a deep breath. And when you're ready, just open your eyes with me. How did that feel? Yeah. Yeah. Some insights, hopefully. Whenever I do that, I'm able to get some insights of a larger life, never smaller. And that sometimes is scary, isn't it? Do you mean I have to go out of my comfort zone? Yes, the answer is yes. The one word the universe loves is yes. Yes, I can. Yes, I'm willing. Now, when James asked me to speak, I know better than to say no, because I said no for more years than I would care to tell you. But I wanted to say no. But I knew if I said no, I would crush something within myself. Have you ever done that? Where you say no, but something inside of you almost dies. Or you're in a class and you have a burning question and decide not to ask it because maybe you'll make a fool of yourself. But something is depressed. You know, psychologists often tell us depression comes from pressing down that urge for creativity. So the universe is always for us and never against us. And the universe is totally different than the world, isn't it? The world is filled with people, places, things. Sometimes chaos, it seems like. But God's universe is perfect and it's complete. And it's offered to us every single moment of our lives. This universe of infinite possibilities, right? Oh, and all it says is say yes. Say yes. Each one of us have created a life for ourselves. Some lives are smaller, some are, I can't imagine what Oprah's life looks like. But the constant call to all of us is do more, be more, be more, be here for God. Be here for life itself. Because life is a tapestry. And each part of us, each one of us are part of that tapestry. And if we don't allow our light to so shine and shine, that part of the tapestry is dark. So as Jesus said, let your light so shine that all who see you see the Father within. That's the really command to each one of us, let our light shine. And you know, people may have no idea why you embrace joy, or you show joy, or you show peace. But there's something about you that they want to be closer to. And what they are seeing is the presence of God flowing through you. You know, I was telling the first service when I was driving here this morning, I was listening to 98.7. That's not a plug. I don't have stock in it. And they were talking about the top song for 1979. And it was written by Barry Gibb, and it was from the movie Grease. He wrote it for the movie. It wasn't in the play. And one of the lines said, "Free to be who you are." Isn't that magnificent? It's a freedom, and that's what unity teaching is all about. You are free to be who you are. No one is telling us here that we're a worm of the dust. No one is talking about original sin here. They are saying to you and me, you are an original blessing. You have everything to offer to life. And I think to myself, and why don't I offer more? Because I get scared. Do you know what fear is like? False evidence appearing real? It's so much easier sometimes to play small, isn't it? But this is a teaching that says, go for it. You know, when I was going through ministerial school, I was working full time. It was downtown Los Angeles, and traffic. You can only imagine in LA what traffic is like. And I thought, I don't know if I can do this. As I say, I was working all the time, going to school. And I used to hang signs all over the apartment I was living in, Santa Monica. Just do it. It was everywhere. It was on the ceiling of my bedroom. Just do it. And isn't that the call to all of us? Just do it. Be willing to be more than you ever thought you could. And we do that by saying yes and taking the next step. Yes, I'll be of service. Yes, I'll be at the C Week. Because I'll tell you that I was telling the first, and James even questioned me. He said, you did what? I came into Unity for the first, I've been a fan of Unity, and I'll tell you a story about that later on, for as many years as I can remember since I've gotten into this teaching. But I decided, I saw in the bulletin about C Week, and I thought, well, I'll come and try a course, and if I don't like it, I'll sneak out and never come back, and no one will know the difference, right? Right? Well, I took the class. I happened to take Alexis's class on abundance, and it was so profound to me and so powerful that I immediately signed up for another class in the evening. And I could not wait for this year. The C class is in October. A friend of mine from Bakersfield rented a house in Kauai. She rented it for 6 months, and she asked me to come the week of C Week and spend the week with her, and I turned it down. I turned it down. James said, you did what? I turned it down. That's how important this was to me for my own spiritual growth and unfoldment. Because no matter how evolved you may think you are, I may think I am, we're just scratching the surface of this stuff. And when we can bring excellent teachers, like for C Week, how terrific for all of us. So I hope you'll join me, and I'll see you at C Week, because it is certainly worthwhile. And gee, James, you've gone to so much work to put all this together. So we all should be so grateful that we have this opportunity. So St. Paul said in Ephesians, he said, I run the course. And he said, I go straight for the goal, through God, with Jesus. And isn't that the call we're talking about right now? I run the course, and I go for the goal. I just do it. And when we take a look at our ideal scene for our life, I don't know about you, but again, I ask myself, why am I not living this? And what stops me? Well, a lot of things have stopped me over the years. But we're called to live that. Well, maybe that's not God's will for me. Have you ever done that? Oh, that may not. God's will for all of us is that which makes our hearts sing. That was implanted from us from all eternity. When something makes our hearts sing, when something makes us quicken, that's God's will for us always. So when you see your ideal scene, you see yourself being more loving, more joyful, accepting more grace, being more creative, and you get excited about it. That's God's will for you. And everything you need to fulfill that vision is already provided for you. All we have to do is say yes and step into it. All we have to do is be willing to let a little self of us go into the bigger self of us, which is always the I am presence within us. I challenged the first service about I am. You know, we've got a third of the year left. We've got 4 months left of this year. How many times will we say, I am tired, I am lonely, I am broke? Ever done that one? I am fearful. And yet, when in Exodus, when God is speaking to Moses, and Moses was a stutterer, biblical scholars tell us Moses was a stutterer. And God, the voice of God says to Moses, you are to go to the Pharaoh, and you're to tell the Pharaoh to free my people. And Moses says, me? I'm a shepherd. I can't speak properly. And God says, Moses, just tell the Pharaoh, I am sent you. That's how God describes itself in the Bible. I am. So the I am of you, every time that we're affirming, I am. Talk about the law of attraction. Boy, I am beautiful. I am wonderful. I am graceful. I am joyful. I am energetic. I am creative. All of the affirmations we can possibly use. I am. Because we're truly calling upon the God within us at that point. I am. So affirm that, because whatever you're affirming, the energy you affirm it with, brings in, the law of attraction will come right. If you said, I am tired, you will have everything that day, I guarantee you, to be tired about. You know, if you're talking about, I am poor, everything, the check you've been waiting for will get lost in the mail, you'll never find it. So what can we do for the next 4 months? I am. I am. You know, God is so good all the time. So what keeps us, or what keeps me, and since there's only one life, from living my ideal scene? Well, one of the things that I can think of right off the bat is self-forgiveness. Because when we have never forgiven ourselves, we are locking ourselves into a cage that is saying, you're not worthy. You have been so bad in this lifetime that you are simply not worthy. Now, that is not the teaching we know, but that is old thinking. I have done something so terrible that it just, I can't go on. I could never live that life. And isn't it time to open that cage? You know, there is a beautiful cartoon that I love, and it's got a man standing in like a gilded bird cage, and he's at the bars, and he's just shaking and shaking to get out. And all the time, the door in the back was opened. He could have gotten out any time. And isn't that for you and me? You know, there have been times when I have gone to somebody that I feel that I've done something just awful, kept myself in this cage of locked, couldn't forgive myself, what's wrong with all the things that go through our mind, and said, I just want you to know that I'm so sorry for, and we can fill in the blank. They said, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. I don't think you ever did that. And for years, sometimes, I have held myself. So the mystics tell us God is the eternal now. That means that God is in the moment. There is no God sitting out there. My God growing up was a God that had a long beard. Anybody associate with this? That sat out there and judged me. You know, it's kind of like Santa Claus. He knows when you're good, knows when you're bad, and if you're really bad, you're going to go to hell, right? I was terrified as a child of going to hell. My grandfather was not a Catholic, he was a Mason, and we were told that anybody but Catholic, if you weren't Catholic, you'd go to hell. And I was so afraid that this wonderful man was going to hell. I spent the first 10 years of my life praying for him. But we don't have a God like that. We have a God that is in the now, in this moment, a God that knows nothing about your former mistakes. You know, James knows about mistakes, being a filmmaker. How many times in a film will they, how many takes in a film will they, to do a scene? It could be 100. So anything that we have done has been a mistake. We get to do it again. And that's all we have to know. I get to do this again. And what we know in Greek, the word sin means to miss the mark. You know, and I think all of us have missed the mark. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And a story that is so profound for me, when I came out of, as James said, I came out of CSL, and there was a practitioner class, and the practitioners are the equivalent of your LUTs, Licensed Unity Teachers. And within that group of about 50 people, men and women, There were 10 birth mothers in there, which means it was in that in the 50s and 60s, when they were 17, 18, 16 years old, some of them, they had given up their children for adoption. And they had never forgiven themselves. Never. When you would talk to these women, they literally put their head down in shame. And so we asked them if they were willing to do some forgiveness work, to do some work on themselves, which they were. And for a year, a group of ministers, practitioners, we had some licensed psychologists come in to work with these women on healing the shame that has bound them, the unforgiveness. At the end of that year, they were totally different women. Some of them had made contact with their children that they had given up for adoption. Several of them it worked beautifully. They bonded and went on to live happily ever after, so to speak. Some of them not so good. But these women got to see that all of their children had gone to good homes, to families that really wanted and couldn't have these children. And their lives changed. They all were underproductive, let's say. They went back to school, some of them. Some of them immediately changed jobs. And one of them, Joan Thornton, who I have permission, she's in the net. She just made her transition. She went to Washington and she became a lobbyist, not only for birth mothers, for their rights, but for birth fathers. So out of that forgiveness work came lives that all of a sudden let their lights shine so bright that all who saw them saw God. So whatever it is that you might be holding against yourself, today's the day. Rabbi Hillel, a great Hebrew, a great minister, rabbi, before Christ, said, if not now, when? And if not me, who? So today's the day to release it and be free. Today's the day to come out of that cage and be free to live our ideal scene, to go straight for the goal, which is always to allow more God to flow through us. So another thing that I would like to talk about, we've got self-forgiveness, and I would like to talk about, thoughts. Anybody ever have an attack thought? Mine were really severe. And I have to be very careful to this day. I have to be very careful. I don't know what caused it, who knows? It's not important. All I know is teachings like Unity have given me tools to up-level my thinking. When I came in here, I could not, and I was an intelligent woman. And we'll just say I was over 35. We won't go any further than that, okay? And when they said take a new thought, I thought, there's no room in my head for a new thought. That's really what I thought. That's impossible. There's no room. And the attack thoughts were so severe right before I came into New Thought. And that's something else to think about, New Thought. When is the last time we've had one, right? But they were so severe. It took a little while for that one. When I tell you that I used to sit on the floor of my home on Mockingbird Lane in Dallas, night after night, with a straight razor, was tonight the night that I had the courage to slit my wrist. And there were times that I rubbed that razor over my wrist, and all I can think of is the grace of God got me here today, period. There's no other way, God's grace. Because I couldn't stop the incessant thinking that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't smart enough. Whatever thought that I wasn't, that's how I felt. And when I came into New Thought and started taking new thoughts about myself, new thoughts about life, new thoughts about not some God out there judging me, but a God within my very being that loves me and that cannot wait to express itself in more glory and more light through me. So watch our thoughts. You know, Emerson said, stand guard the portals of your mind. Now, I don't know about your mind, but boy, I still have to stand guard. And I often think to myself, if I just think, if you imagine your thoughts, imagine yourself that you had a beautiful $50 million home, wouldn't you, filled with priceless art, wouldn't you take care of that house to make sure nobody got in, nobody was going to rob you or take something from you? You would guard that home because it's of value to you. Aren't our thoughts like that? Our thoughts create our life. So when Emerson said, stand guard the portals of your mind, boy, he was talking to me. And maybe you also can associate with this. And remember, no matter what negative thought comes, if we're awake enough, and that's a key too, being awake, right? Awake, alive, and aware, to say, no, catch that thought. Because if not, the thought's got us. We don't have the thought. Isn't that true? We've given away our power. That no, that thought, you are not welcome here, and I'm going to take a positive new thought. Because that's the only way to live the life, to live our ideal life. To think about it, and to think in terms of, oh, wouldn't it be nice? But to say, I can do that. I am powerful. I am the very presence of God in action, and I can do that, right? And the last thing I want to talk about is prayer. Oh my goodness, prayer it's just an incredible gift, isn't it? You have licensed Unity teachers here, which they pray. And you have that opportunity every Sunday after church to go in and have them pray with you. What a gift that is. And I'll tell you just a quick story. I don't want to run late, but years ago, when I was in Bakers, I have used unity.org for years. And I email prayer requests. This is before I came and knew you have a prayer chest, which I use also. But my board president came in one day, and his wife was very ill. She had gotten a diagnosis, which was frightening to him. She survived beautifully. And so we talked, and we prayed, and we prayed. And he said, I'd like to get myself on a prayer list other than our own practitioners. He said, how do I get a hold of CSL's prayer line? And I said, oh, don't go to CSL, go to unity.org. I did. And when he left, and I got thinking, I thought, he's going to fire me. There was not a question in my mind he was going to fire me. He didn't. But anyway, you've got powerful tools here. And when I wake up in the morning, I've got a portrait of my 3 children, Kelly, Dan, and Dave, straight ahead of me. I wake up and sit up, and that's what I see. I immediately, and I mean immediately, I go to prayer for them, for their safety, for their well-being, for their greatest yet to be, for joy for them. And the other day I was thinking, I forget to pray for myself. Do you ever do that? I forget. I'm so busy praying for my family, for my brother, for my niece, for anybody that's asked me for prayer. I forget to pray for myself. And prayer is so powerful. Reverend Michael Beckwith used to say, put yourself at the top of the prayer list. Every day, put yourself at the top of the prayer. Because if you're not prayed up, there's nothing to give anybody else. And prayer works miracles. I shared at the first service, I've got my oldest grandson, who is just my heart in many ways. And his name is Trey. He lives in LA. He's 17. And everything that could possibly go wrong on a human realm, we would think, for Trey has gone wrong all of his life. And he's got a brother who's 14, and everything on the human realm for Davis has gone right. So it's been even more challenging for Trey, because everything he tries to do, he's got a brother that can do it better, and not out of a spiteful way, it's just the way it's set up. So in October of last year, Trey was in a private school that I'd love to tell you the name of, but I won't, I'll refrain from it. Trey is different, he's just different. He goes to the beat of a whole different drummer. The school newspaper put an article about him in their paper, talking about, carefully disguised, this boy that was a misfit, this boy that didn't really belong. And it even went as far as to give the city, which was Pacific Palisades, of where my son and his wife and Trey live. They even named that. So I said to Danny, I said, sue them. How about that for spiritual practice? Sue them. Because he truly had a defamation lawsuit. He said, I'm not going to do that, Mom. So they took Trey out of that school immediately, and they put him in another school that he's done very well in. But they still worry about him, will he get into college, will this, will that? And he's also a very fine volleyball player that works so hard at it. So my son, Dan, he's not a regular caller. Now, he's not a daily caller. So he called Thursday, and I'm always so thrilled to talk to him. And he called yesterday morning, and the minute I saw it, comes up on my phone, Danny, a picture of him. And I thought, uh-oh, positive thinking, you see? I thought, uh-oh, because it was totally unusual. And he said, I said, Dan, what's up? And he said, well, I'm in Las Vegas at Davis's baseball tournament. He said, but I've got some great news about Trey. And I said, what is it? And he said, Trey got a letter from Emerson College in Boston, and they accepted him. And they gave him a scholarship for volleyball. Now, oh, thank you. And Danny said, I just don't understand it. And he said, after Trey opened the letter and showed it to me, he said, I quietly went in my office and he said, I called Emerson to make sure they sent it to the right Trey White. So he said, I don't understand this. And I said, I do, Danny. I said, people have been praying for Danny for Trey for so long. I said, prayer works miracles. And he said, well, Mom, we just saw one right now. So as you're creating your ideal scene, this teaching, this unity teaching of prayer, and I don't know if I have time for one more story or not. James is kind of watching me. Do I? All right. Myrtle and Charles Fillmore started this teaching, as you know, they're married. And Myrtle got into it first, and she truly believed in healing by prayer. Now, we're not Christian scientists here, a prayer, a pill, whatever works, but they believed in the great power of prayer. And Myrtle became ill. She had tuberculosis, and this was maybe in the 200 or the early 2000, late 1800s, where tuberculosis was a death sentence in many ways. And through prayer, she used to imagine Jesus sitting next to her, and she prayed and she prayed and she prayed herself well until she was completely cured. It took her 2 years, but she was completely cured. Her husband, seeing this, thought, maybe she's on to something. Huh? What a concept. Maybe she's on to something. And Charles, as a young boy, was in a skating accident, and an infection set into his leg that left him lame, and it left that leg withered. And it was 3.5 inches shorter than the other leg. And they didn't think he'd ever even walk again. Well, walk he did with crutches and a cane. And he carried on through life like that. And when he saw what happened with Myrtle, he decided to pray also, to start praying. And the two of them prayed. And it is documented history that Charles's leg grew 3.5 inches. Now, isn't that marvelous? And isn't that inspiration? Prayers work. So when we see our ideal scene for our life, it has infinite possibilities in that. Because Jesus said, with God, it's possible. With man, not so much. But with God, it's possible. So we can pray. Pray, St. Paul said, without ceasing. And it might be just through the day we bless ourselves, to be uplifted, to move closer to that ideal scene of our life. We let go of all negative thinking. Let go of it. It doesn't serve us. Be aware when those negative attack thoughts come in. Imagine they're wasps coming into your brain. We can get rid of them. And the other thing is forgive yourself. God, there's nothing in the mind of God that holds anything against you other than to see your wholeness and your perfection. And I want to close quickly with a short quote from Charles Fillmore. Now, Myrtle had died at this time, his beloved wife. They were married for many, many, many years. And Charles was going to get remarried. Now, he was 93 years old. So doesn't that tell us something? And here's what he said for any of us today that might say, I am tired, I am whatever, I am too old. He says, I fairly sizzle with zeal, energy, and enthusiasm to do that which ought to be done by me today. Isn't that true? Isn't that the truth? So take a deep breath. And if you caught something in that meditation about your ideal scene, carry it with you this week. Be uplifted. For you are unique, you are precious, and you are the living God in expression. So thank you so much. God bless you all.